Hi folks, Steve here again with a companion video to the one that I'm doing about creating the saxophone end plug, which dealt with, in part 3, creating ribs around the head of or the top of the plug, and how to create a polar transformation of those ribs. I should have actually rewrote this because they're called polar patterns and not polar transformation, but that's okay, you'll get the point. Well, what I want to deal with in this video are the common problems that can occur when you go to use this feature, and specifically to emphasize that if you want to stay within the part design workbench, you have to anchor the sketch and the pad that you want to transform to the active body. All right, well, let's go ahead and do some examples and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, let's go ahead and create a part. Let's create a sketch on the XY plane, concentric circle with the center being the origin, 40 millimeters. Close, let's pad it 40 millimeters. Okay, so let's go ahead now and talk about how we want to create a rib or a nubbin, and then take that rib or nubbin and then create a polar pattern of it around this body. As I said earlier, there are a number of ways you can do this, but if you wish to stay within the part design workbench, you have to create a sketch and have that sketch attached in some way and overlap the body that you want to do the transformation around. So let me show you what I mean. So let's attach the new sketch to the bottom of this pad. Okay? So let's go ahead and, for the sake of argument, let's just create a half circle or so. Make it 6 millimeters. And we still have 1 degree of freedom, which is the distance between the center point of the circle and the center point of the x-axis. Let's go ahead and do that. Call it 20. Okay? We close. Now we close the sketch. And let's go ahead and pad the sketch. Now you'll see when we padded the sketch, the actual pad went in a direction that we didn't expect. But actually, if you think about it, we created the sketch on the bottom of this body. So from the perspective of the bottom of the body, the pad went in a positive Z direction. Okay, it's like standing on the bottom of the world and looking up at the sky. So to bring this up, we have to reverse the direction. Okay, so now we have basically a rib that is both anchored to the bottom of the body and overlapping the body. Since those two conditions are met, we can create a polar pattern. Let me go ahead and rename this so I can keep this rib. Just keep it all straight. Okay, so let's go ahead and select the rib, do a polar pattern, and we see when the polar pattern box comes up, we get the axis that we're going to use as the basis of the polar pattern. In this case, it can be the normal sketch axis, but it's actually really the base Z axis in the blue. Let's call it 6. And we have OK. So now we've used the polar pattern to create a polar array of those ribs. We could also use the multi-transform tool. So let's delete the polar pattern. select the rib. We're in the part design workbench now. Come over here to the multi-transform tool, and you see that the multi-transform tool, we've already selected the rib. Right click to add, and we can add a mirrored, linear, and a polar or scaled, move up, move down. So add a polar pattern. Again, selecting the Z axis, number 6. Okay, and there we've done it again. Now let's talk about things that when you're experimenting might have gone wrong. So let's take the multi-transform tool out of the equation, delete it. Let's go back and see what happens if we move the rib out from being adjacent. So let's go ahead and make the rib so it's not overlapped. So let's close it. Oh, it vanished. What happened? In fact, when you move in the part design workbench, when you move the attached sketch so it is no longer adjacent to the or overlapping the core structure, it just becomes invisible. Now the sketch is still there. One just can't see it. See? The sketch is there. Close it. Try to pat it. Nothing happens. Okay? But the sketch is still there. It simply cannot be worked on inside of the part design workbench. It can be worked on in other workbenches, okay, but not in the part design workbench. So let's go ahead and try something different. Let's get rid of the rib. Sometimes, by the way, the delete key doesn't work on a Mac. So there you can still see the sketch. Delete the sketch. My delete key doesn't work sometimes when I open up FreeCad. Okay, but let's say you wanted to do this as two bodies. Well, what if then? Because what if you didn't anchor it? What if you tried a different approach? So let's go ahead and create a new body. We'll call the new body the rib. And within the rib, let's create ourselves a new sketch in the XY plane. Do a cross section. Create a circle. 10 millimeters. I'm probably bigger than it was before. Distance it from the center. Close it. Pat it. Okay. Now it's two separate bodies now, right? We did not attach this sketch to the body, right? The rib is a separate body. So let's go ahead and ask ourselves, can we now do a multi-transform tool? And the answer to that is, let's see. The answer is no, because one transformed shape does not intersect the support. In this case, to do a multi-transformation or to do a polar transformation on a padded sketch, it must be anchored to something. And in this case, since we have removed the attachment from the main body, it fails. Does that mean it's all over? What if you wanted to do it this way for some reason? Well, the answer is always true in FreeCAD, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You in fact can do a polar transformation, but you have to go to a different workbench. In this case, it would be the draft workbench. Oh, I don't like the fact that that guy shows up, so let's just take it away. Okay? Now, in the draft workbench, there is a tool which allows you to accomplish a similar purpose. It is, we got to find it here. There it is, Array Tools, Polar Array, Polar Angle, 6. But in the draft workbench, you have to select what your center of rotation is. Because the body that we're rotating or that we're doing a polar array of is around the 0, 0, 0, we can set the center to all zeros, click OK, and there you go. You have now used the draft workbench to accomplish the same purpose. And then you can go back to part design and it's still there. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that there are different ways in FreeCAD to make a polar array. And I've kind of talked about 2 different ways to do it. Routinely, I simply anchor that which I'm trying to do a polar array on to the body that I'm using as the structure to attach the polar array to. Okay, thanks. Bye.